it's Dr. Cindy with the Positively Altered podcast. I am a chiropractic internist and nutritionist, and we discuss all things with a health spin to a certain degree. Absolutely no filter, sometimes funny, sometimes sad, sometimes serious, sometimes not. And it's all good stuff. Today, I am super excited to have my guest because we are going to talk about veterans. Veterans are really, really important. My father was a veteran. I have family members who are veteran. I have friends who are veterans. And I think there's a whole world out there of things that we just may not know, should know, and ways that we can help in this particular area. And then we're going to see where that takes us, because my guest is super fun to chat with. He's been in this area for a long time because he served and is involved in a volunteer capacity. And I just want to share some of this information. So grab something to drink, a comfortable place to sit. If you're driving, focus on the road. But we're going to be right back. Take a quick listen to our sponsors, as they're really important to me. And we will be back with my next guest.
Hello, my name is Heather Lord, and I am the COO of Professional Health Products. Cutting corners is an all too common practice in the dietary supplement industry. When my father founded Professional Health Products, he sourced the cleanest, most biologically active ingredients from around the globe. Today, that commitment remains, which is why the finest healthcare practitioners, like Dr. Cindy, have trusted us for more than 40 years. We oversee the entire process in our manufacturing facility, from sourcing and formulation to manufacturing and labeling. Today, we offer over 300 unique products that can be tailored to the nutritional and homeopathic needs of each individual. Most recently, we launched a proprietary genetic test, allowing our practitioners to get even more dialed in to their patients' health. To learn more about Professional Health Products, please talk to your practitioner or visit our website at phpltd.com.
Today, your life is going to be altered. I'm Dr. Cindy.
Welcome to Infinity. We have worked hard to create an electronic claims website that is simple and user-friendly. This is the public side. You can log into your personal web portal here. This is your dashboard. You can personalize it to your liking here. Our main focus has been to allow you to submit and edit claims as easy as possible. You will find our claims editor and claims processing is simple to use and straightforward. Our quick action bar is where you can find your most important information. Most of these icons will take you directly to the claims the number represents. You can easily view if you have any messages in your inbox of any unread alerts by looking for these blue numbers. To view the rest of our training videos to get the most of your Infinity experience, click this icon. We hope you find this web portal simple and easy to use. Thanks for letting us serve you.
I'm Dr. Cindy. Who wouldn't want to join me for the Positively Altered podcast? Welcome back to the Positively Altered podcast. I am super excited to introduce you today to my friend, Terry Ruettiger. Terry, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Cindy. How are you today?
I am fantastic. Are you doing well?
I'm doing fine. Trying to maybe freezing a bit with this weather. Can't wait to get to Florida and play a little golf. So, yeah.
Oh, you had to rub that in a little, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, I don't really appreciate that, Terry, because I'm in Illinois for the winter, and I think it was 15 degrees here today.
Yes, you're right. And it's been cool. And I haven't played golf since October because of the weather. And yeah, it would be good to A, see the family this month, B, then take off for Florida and get some nice warm weather.
Good. So now that everybody in my listening audience feels sorry for you because there's been no golf since October, I think we might have to dive into a different subject, because this isn't going to go well with people who live in the cold.
I know that.
Yeah, it's not going to go well. All right. So let's just dive right in, because, it's really interesting. You were actually drafted into the U.S. Army in February of 1968. I don't even know what that means anymore, to be drafted. We don't do that, do we?
No, there is no draft any longer. I was pre-lottery. So I just got drafted. I got my draft notice in December of 67. And of course, as they say, is greetings from the President of the United States. You have been selected. So yes, it was something that back then everyone did. Everyone registered for the draft and everyone served. And then in probably the early 70s, Nixon started I think it was Nixon started the all volunteer army because of some of the issues that went on during the Vietnam War.
Now let's go back. I don't know if you remember, but like, were you scared? Were you excited? Were you honored? How do you feel when you have no choice and you get the congratulations, you're going to, serve notice?
Well, I was apprehensive, obviously. My older brother served in the army in the States. He had joined when he was 19, 20 years old. And he served 3 years, but he never left the country, the continental United States. He was in during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he was redeployed to Florida in anticipation of the invasion of Cuba, which did not happen. So I had quite a few uncles that were in World War II. One was a gunner in a B-17. Another one was infantryman, and so forth and so on. So back in the 60s, we registered for the draft, I think at 18 or 19 years old, and then everyone served unless you had a deferment. And deferments were college or being married. And while I was in college for 4 years, I was not married, so I knew at some point in time it was going to happen, especially with the build-up and during the Vietnam War. When I got over there, it was we had probably 500,000 men in Vietnam, but there was a significant build-up. So yes, I knew it was coming. Was I apprehensive? Yeah, yes. Being away from home, going, not knowing at the time when I was drafted what was going to happen, but I knew I had a lot of friends that were over in Vietnam.
So you showed up, and do they eeny, meeny, miny, moe you as to what your job gets to be, or how does that happen?
Well, I started out at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, basic training, which everyone takes basic military training. And then after basic military training, then you get assigned to to your MOS, military occupational skill. And during the training period, you do some psychological evaluations. And for instance, they said to me, I just remember vividly, some of the questions. Are you afraid at night? Do you get apprehensive? You hear loud noises, blah, blah, blah. And I, of course, said no. Then as I think back, I should have said yes. I wouldn't have been where I was. But anyway, after basic training, they sent me to Fort Polk, Louisiana for advanced infantry training. And it was kind of, we got down there and you put into these training companies of a couple hundred guys, and you then get training for the infantry. And Fort Polk, Louisiana is out in it's very warm, very hot. And it's a lot like Vietnam, if you will. But during the first get together formation, we call it, of the company, they said, okay, how many of you have been to college? And I would bet 30 or 40% raised their hands. So the thought process back then, well, if you had some college, you're going to get a good job. A good job meaning like a clerk or something like that, not in the infantry. But most of the infantrymen back then had some college, or obviously had some ability to follow orders and so forth and so on. So we went through 9 weeks of training down there. and it was geared towards Vietnam and the conditions in Vietnam. We trained with the weapons that were used in Vietnam, the M16, the machine gun, blah, 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 so forth and so on. And I fired all those weapons down there. And then at the end of the training, then you got your orders of where we're going to go. And 90% of us were going to go into Vietnam. Some of them went to Germany, so forth and so on. But I was a rifleman. I came home on a 17-day leave. Typically after, when it's not in a wartime environment, you come home on a 30-day leave. But because they were trying to get as many troops over to Vietnam at the time, we only had about 17 days. And then from there, I had my leave, and then I flew to Oakland, California. That was a jumping off point, if you will, for Vietnam. And I was there for 3 or 4 days while they put us in groups and so forth. And then we got on a commercial airline, the old Boeing 707, and flew to Vietnam. We had to stop and refuel in Alaska, and then Tokyo, and then landed at Bien Hoa in South Vietnam. And I'll never forget coming into South Vietnam. It was at night, and the plane's coming in, and I'm looking out the window, and all I see are these red tracer bullets down below going back and forth, thinking, oh my God, what am I into now? So that's how I got over there.
Wow. It's amazing. And I don't mean to make light of it, but my only experience is what you see in the movies, right? And I can't imagine what it feels like as a teenage boy, a young man, to be thrown into something you see in the movies.
Well, it was, when I got there, I was in a group of guys. Then I was told I was a replacement man in the 101st Airborne Division. And the 101st Airborne Division is a very rah-rah division. They have a lot of history in the World War II, Bastogne, Battle of the Bulge, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of history there. And there's a lot of respect. When I was in training, I saw anybody with a patch of 101st Airborne Division, all us guys said, wow, look at that guy. Yeah, he was in the 101st, blah, blah, blah. So, when I got assigned to the 101st, I thought, oh my gosh, am I in for it now? Because they were known to be, kind of unique fighting force, and they were air mobile in Vietnam, which means, they didn't jump with parachutes. We had Huey helicopters, which would carry, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 troopers and come in and do a quick air assault, in an enemy area. And we would have, 20, 30 helicopters come in, jump down, you jump out. And if you ever saw the movie We Were Soldiers, with Mel Gibson, that was the first cav, and that was how you came in, and you jumped out and you started firing and so forth and so on. So I went through probably, I'm going to guess, over 30 air assaults my time over there. And it was different because the chopper just landed, or just kind of set down and didn't really land. You jumped right out into the grass or rice paddies or wherever you were landing. But it was kind of funny because when I was in college, I was majoring in math, and we all were concerned about our deferment of not getting drafted. And I said, hey guys, I got it all figured out. Don't worry about it, because there's 3 million men in the armed forces. You've got 500,000 in Vietnam, so you got 1 out of 6 chances going there. And half of them are combat and half of them are support, 1 out of 12. And then there's, you get a couple hundred get killed a week or whatever. So I did all the odds, and I said, hey, one in 3,000 that you're going to go over there and have something happen to you. Well, when I got there in end of July, middle of July of 68, I was a replacement for a rifle company, and I was in a 10-man squad, and by early September, there was only 3 of us left out of the 10. So I wrote back to the guys out in college and said, forget about all that computations I did, because all that's baloney depending where you are. So it was funny at the time, but I was wounded once when I was over in Vietnam, and not a very serious wound, so I stayed there. And it was the biggest thing about my Vietnam experience, I would say, is how you had to live. You lived out in the field with what you carried on your back and nothing else. And we would carry around on our back probably 50, 60, 70 pounds. And you'd be on patrol and you'd engage the enemy, not that often, but often enough. But just the living conditions. At times they would send you out new fatigues, new clothes, and it just came out in a big duffel bag, and one size fits all. You grab one and grab a pair of pants and grab a jacket or a shirt, and that's it. Well, I don't know what happened. One time I was out in the field for 6 straight weeks, never got a set of clean clothes, never had a shower, never had anything. So I went 6 weeks without clean clothes or a shower. But we carried a bar of soap with us and a razor, and you would shave once every 3 or 4 days and take the bar of soap and wash your armpits and your face and stuff like that. But only thing we wore was our fatigues, our trousers, and our shirt, because you never wore any undergarments, any underpants or undershirt or anything like that, because we were constantly wet. I was at the time going through rice paddies, and you'd walk across a creek that was up to your chin, maybe, or up to your chest or whatever, but you were constantly wet. And then when it rained it rained when I got there every day. It seemed like every day. It rained at 2:00 in the afternoon or 3:00 or 4, whatever. You always had a rain, and then sometimes you had rain come in. You'd be sleeping on the ground. We didn't have any tents or anything like that. You just slept on the ground, and if it rained, you slept with a poncho over you. And it was the living conditions of what you endured as much as the combat that was something that made you stronger, or it was unique, if I could say that. Something I grew up with 2 brothers on the east side of Joliet, and it was I never went camping or anything, and it was just the experience of how you lived for that year or so you were over there. So that was when I came back, I thought, if I could do that, I can do anything.
Right. Right.
So
it's interesting when I listen to you, I think about the strength that creates, but what about also the people it breaks?
Well, there are some people that had some problems that got transferred out of the company. A company. Okay, there's 3 squads to a platoon, 3 10-man squads to a platoon of 30, and 3 platoons to a company. And typically we would operate in either a company, or maybe even a platoon. So our patrols or so, or every night we'd set up an ambush, or we'd have a company perimeter. We had 3 men positions. 2 guys would sleep while one guy sat there with his rifle, And out in front of you, you had a claymore mine, a directional mine, plus a trip flare. So if anybody, you had a trip flare maybe with a trip wire, maybe 20 feet wide. And in case they're trying to sneak up on you, you blew the claymore mine and so forth and so on. But you slept for 2 hours and then set up for an hour. Slept for 2 hours and set up for an hour. And you're not walking, you're just sitting there, and you'd look at your watch and say, when's my time up? I hope the next guy doesn't fall asleep and something happens, and so forth. So those kinds of conditions were very unique. I mean, in September of maybe it was October of 68, I experienced a monsoon, which meant we couldn't get resupply for 3 days, and we were holed up in a South Vietnamese village, which was grass hooches and dirt floors and stuff like that, and with the thatch roof, and that was about it. And the rain came in; it was nothing but wind and rain, and we ran out of food. We had some water, but ran out of some food. I mean, it was those kinds of things happen, and that's how you live. That's, I mean, from a guy from the east side of Joliet that went through private schools, it was a total, a total change of how you live. And it was something that, as I came back, as I think about it, certainly it made me a stronger person today. And it was something that I would, I think that the military creates the discipline in everybody. A war in a war zone, it just, the hardships you go through, you can't explain to somebody that hasn't gone through it. But after experiencing it, you say, hey, if I can do that, I can do anything.
So do you believe that those living conditions are almost essential to make you a good soldier?
I don't know if they're essential, but that's what war is. That's what it's like. You're out in the field, and that's how you are. I mean, we were, every division over there was the 101st, there's a 1st Cav, there's the 1st Infantry Division, a 4th Infantry Division, 25th. They all have different ways of doing things. And the way the 101st did things, we were flown by helicopters, Hueys, for the most part, and came in very quickly and to seek out the enemy. Now, again, Vietnam is not like World War II, or there's no front lines. It was just, it's an insurgency, the guerrillas that you were fighting, the North Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, and it was seek out and destroy. That was what we were supposed to do. But again, the combat is one thing. People go through combat. Now, we would be out in the field. We had a battalion. So a battalion, which is 4 or 5 companies, and about 500 men. And a battalion has an area, and one company would rotate back to a fire support base. A fire support base is where you have big artillery pieces. They're fixed. They cover 105s, 155s, so forth. But these big, huge artillery guns, if you will, and they're stationary, and they can fire up to 5 miles away. The 105s can. The 155s maybe 7 miles, but regardless. But when we're out in the field, we always had coverage. We could call in for artillery if we were attacked or so forth. But what I started to say is one company would come into this fire support base for a week and pull perimeter duty, where you would still be sacked out on the ground, but you weren't walking around every day seeking out. You're just there for a week while the other companies of your battalion was out in the bush seeking out the enemy. So that was your relief, if you will. 1 week out of 4. But the one time I alluded to was 6 straight weeks I was out there, and we had no change of clothes, no showers, no nothing. It was unique, if you will. But
Yeah.
stop and think about it. If you're, we take for granted, we take a shower every day, we clean, whatever, and it's so simple. And, we didn't have that. There was nothing like that at that time. So whatever.
So is there anything, we read about Vietnam, right? And all the young kids now who are so distanced from the generations before us. Is there anything about Vietnam that's really important that we carry forward that are not in the history books that we need to know?
Well, I just think the Vietnam veteran coming back, when I was growing up, I grew up in the 50s and watched all the old World War II movies and the glamour of it and so forth. But when you get into war, there is no glamour, so to speak. But watching those old movies, you thought of the soldiers coming home, the fanfare and the rah-rah and so forth. When we came home from Vietnam, there was none of that. And it was, I said I didn't have a job. I had to go out and get a job, blah. And I would say I was in Vietnam, and the prospective employer would say nothing, or so what, or whatever. So we were not welcomed home. We started being welcoming home maybe a little bit under the Reagan administration in the 1980s. And today we are. I mean, today there's a lot of, a lot of people recognize what we did. Not just the Vietnam veteran, but all of the veterans. And there's, I wear my baseball cap that says Vietnam on it and so forth. And it's gratifying when somebody comes up to me and says, "Thank you for your service." Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really nice. Or when I go over to Lowe's, there's a parking space reserved for veterans, which is kind of neat. So today it's totally different than it was when I came home in the 70s, because the Vietnam War was, looked down upon. There was all of the demonstrations and so forth and so on. And then it gradually changed, and today is changed. It's really changed. In fact, there's a course up at Lockport High School that a teacher teaches, the Vietnam War course. It's a 1 semester course, and he has veterans coming in to speak to them. And I've went in last year, and I'm going in again this year. And there's 4 of us, 3 Marines and me. And the course instructor is Mike Zaworski. But we're in there for 2 days, 2 periods, 1 period a day. And in fact, it's coming up next week, and I'll be in there. And we, the kids, he has them just ask questions. And for 45 minutes, all we're doing is answering questions. And they're good questions. These are seniors, I believe, juniors and seniors, mostly seniors. And they're a little more, they're mature, and they ask great questions. Of course, they want to know about, did you kill somebody? Did you shoot? Or all those other things, but the combat. But this, I don't know of any other high school besides Lockwood East that has a course in Vietnam. And he also sponsors the school sponsors a Veterans Day before a basketball game, and that's coming up also, where he has all the veterans that want to come. And we have a little box lunch at night before the basketball game. And then we walk into the gymnasium, and to a round of applause from everybody, a standing ovation for 20 minutes as like 150 of us walk in. And then he introduces every veteran individually, was standing at one end of the gym, then walk down to the other end of the gym. And then they have a flag that covers the whole court. and they play the national anthem. It's really neat. It's nice that he does this, takes this upon himself to do this for the veterans. And I can't say enough about the guy. That he's a history teacher, but he teaches this. I think it's a 1 semester course because we
That's
come
so
in twice a
great.
year.
That's so great.
Yeah.
What other things are you involved in, Terry, in terms of volunteering and giving back and supporting veterans that we need to be aware of that's out there?
Well, as a veteran of foreign war, I belong to Stone City VFW, and help out when I can down there. Down in Florida, we have a veterans association in our complex, and every year they have a golf outing. In the fall, they just had it. I was down there for it in October, and play golf. And we have we take the money. This year they made, I think like $25,000. And a couple of years ago, we bought a dog, a companion dog for a veteran in Florida. And it takes a couple of years to train these dogs. They're not really seeing eye dogs or companion dogs that you see when you get on these planes or something like that. And I think generally they're German Shepherds, but not always. But it takes a while and it costs money to train them. Sure. So we bought a dog for somebody. Last year we put up a veterans memorial in one of the local areas down there to bring some notoriety to the veterans down there in Florida. And that organization does quite a few things. And then back, as I said, back here at the VFW, and then in New Lenox, they have over in the Commons, they have a veterans memorial there that I donated to or whatever, and did some things like that. But anything that I can do, I participate in the golf outing for the Abraham Lincoln Cemetery Honor Guard. They have a fundraiser every June, and I participate in the raising of money for that and so forth.
So Terry, before we take a break, I want to talk about something near and dear to my heart really quickly, and that is healthcare. Can you just spend a minute talking a little bit about the type of healthcare you receive when you're enlisted and overseas, and versus do you feel that our veterans are really getting taken care of in the healthcare space once we bring you home?
Well, I would say that one of the things that I really liked 3 or 4 years ago, Trump came in and he said, if you can't get health care at the VA, go any place and we'll pick it up. We'll pay for it, which I think was great. Now, I don't use the VA for health care. I don't qualify for it because of some other things, so forth and so on. My older brother does use it at times, and I have gone. I had some prostate cancer that was a product of that Agent Orange that was used over there. Mm-hmm. So I had to go through radiation and so forth and so on. But today I'm fine, cured, so forth. But the VA, the Veterans Administration, they recognize that it does. The Agent Orange created this issue. And I would say that as far as the healthcare, I don't know that many people that use the VA. The ones that I know that use it, they seem to be satisfied. I'm at that age now, like all Vietnam veterans, that we're in the twilight years of our life, so to speak. But I don't have any firsthand experience with the VA, but it appears that I looked at the budget and they sure as heck spends a lot of money on the VA, which is good.
I'm grateful that you're healthy, and I'm grateful that we're finally recognizing that some of these things were very dangerous, causing a lot of health concerns, and we really need to take care of everybody who's experiencing problems. It's one thing to get sick. It's another thing to get sick because you're serving our country and allowing us the freedoms. And we need to do a great job, not just a good job, but we need to do a great job, providing healthcare and avenues for those of you that have served. And I hope our government continues to do those things. It's near and dear to my heart. It's super important. And, I want to hear that, right? I want to hear that everybody's being well taken care of.
Well, I really like that these other organizations, the Tunnel to Tower, the Folds of Honor, and so forth, are helping our veterans too. So
Yeah,
I think that's great.
It's great. It's absolutely wonderful. Well, Terry, hang tight. We're going to take a really quick break, listen to a couple sponsors, and then we're going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions that I did not prep you for. We're going to see what your answers are. Okay.
Okay.
All right, everybody. We'll be right back after a couple messages. This is your weekly dose of Dr. Cindy, the Positively Altered podcast. Stop. Hit that follow button now and spread the love with Positively Altered. We are back with my friend Terry Ruettiger with a great heart-to-heart conversation about his time in Vietnam and some things that followed. But now we're going to have a little bit of fun, Terry. We're going to ask you, me and my invisible friend, I always say we, I don't know who's sitting next to me. I am going to ask you some rapid fire questions, and I'm just curious what your answers are. You ready to go?
Sure.
All right. If you could change the color of the sky to any color except the color that it is currently, what color would you make it?
Red.
Why?
I always enjoyed red, the color red. When I was played Little League Baseball, my baseball team was red in color.
Oh my God. Red is a manic color, Terry. It's a manic color. You're going to make the whole world manic.
Well, I like red.
Oh my gosh. And it's funny that you say baseball. I have to bring up, because again, these are not really true rapid fire questions. You actually coached basketball for a ton of years, right? Childhood basketball. I have to ask, did the military actually prepare you for that? Because I can't imagine giving that many decades to childhood sports as a coach.
Well, no, I just enjoyed coaching. When I was in college, I thought about being a teacher and a coach, and basketball, I got involved just by another guy that asked me to help him coach. I said, hey, that's fun.
Oh my gosh, that's great. I'll tell you, I think there's a couple nephews removed a couple times over in your family that actually were my boys' wrestling coaches. So,
all first cousins.
First cousins. Okay.
All first cousins. Yep.
I was going to say, you've got a big sports family. So,
you're right.
The reach is huge in the coaching space for sure. All right, Terry, you know how they make you change your password sometimes when you're working on a computer?
Yes.
If you had to change your name, what would you change it to?
Change my name? My password name?
No, your name. Like instead of your password, if I said you had to change your name when you signed up for something, what would you change your name to?
I wouldn't change it. I like the name I have.
Oh my God, I love that. Do you know nobody gives me that answer? Nobody changes their name. That's perfect. So your mom and dad did right by you by picking the name.
They did.
Most kids are like, why would you name me that? It's a terrible name, right?
No, I enjoy it.
All right, you get to keep it. Now we're going to break in everything you have because we know your name and it won't be unique. So
that's right.
That's perfect. Right. That's perfect. Okay, if all animals could be domesticated, what animal would you pick to be a pet in your home?
Well, right now I've had dogs. I know they are domesticated, but I don't care for cats. I do care for dogs, but if you're talking about a wild animal, I don't know. In my home, certainly not a snake, that's for sure, or an alligator. I see a lot of alligators in Florida, so certainly not one of those. I had never really thought about it.
See, but it's good that you know what you wouldn't have. See, now if you caught, I'll tell you, so when you go down to Florida, if you catch an alligator or a snake, I would be very appreciative because we're not going to domesticate it. We're going to make boots out of it.
That's great. I'll be happy having the alligator boots. Yes.
Okay. I'm sure we're going to get some hate mail now over that from, the animal rights people, but they do make good boots, don't they?
Yes. Yes. They're sharp looking.
They do make good boots. Okay. So let me know if that happens. All right. If you could pick any food that should be a breakfast food that is not a breakfast food, what would you make a breakfast food?
Oh, I guess a steak sandwich.
Okay. What kind of steak? Filet? Are you a filet guy? Are you
filet for sure.
All right. All right. This is the $1 million question though, Terry. This lets me know if we're still going to be friends to go to dinner or not. What temperature is your steak?
Medium rare.
Nice. Perfect. I never understood the people that order a steak well done. I don't get that.
Oh my God. My younger brother orders well done. I said, you ruined the steak.
Right. It's not really meat anymore. It's like rubber.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. And you can answer this question whether on yourself or somebody else. I'll give you your choice. But what is your favorite body part and why?
My favorite body parts. My favorite body parts, I guess, is my brain. If that's a part.
It's a pretty important part.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy doing things. I enjoy learning. I don't read enough, but I do. I love reading the news. I get about 4 newspapers that nobody reads anymore. They all get everything out of the internet. But I read the Joliet paper, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Wall Street Journal, and so forth. So.
Wait, who do you believe though, Terry, when there's contradicting news?
I believe myself. I don't believe any of them because I disagree with the position of the Chicago Sun-Times. They're a very liberal paper. I'm a conservative guy, I guess I would say. So, but only reason I get the Sun-Times, I've been reading the sports page since the 1950s. So I get it for the sports page.
Oh my gosh. So before we sign off, I got to tell you a funny story. And I still have the article. It came out of the Chicago Sun-Times. And I can't remember. I'd have to pull it out. I can't remember the baseball player that it was, but I was very into baseball when I was in high school because I had mono for 6 weeks and there was nothing else to watch but baseball and soap operas. So I picked baseball. So I was following baseball and there was actually an article that they published about a hitter's shitting streak. True story. I have it somewhere. And I thought it was so funny that they didn't catch that typo. And now, now as a doctor, I love to talk about poop. So I guess that's where the attraction came many years ago when you see a misprint in an article. Oh my gosh, Terry, it's been an absolute pleasure. Last but not least, what was your favorite thing about doing the podcast today?
Just listening to you and seeing you. And actually, I really enjoyed talking about the veterans. I really did enjoy that. And trying to educate some people about what war is like. I enjoyed that.
I love it, Terry. How can they share with us? Are there any organizations that are near and dear to your heart that if people want to volunteer or make donations to, they can check out in order to help our veterans?
Well, I just think the typical ones you see on television, Tunnels to Tower, I think that now all that money does not go to veterans directly. Some of it is the other police, fire, so forth. But when they say they come in and pay off a mortgage for the fallen veteran, I think that's fabulous. I think it's fabulous. And the folds of honor, you see that, and there's the other one that's on television. I forget the name of it now, but
I know we've donated to Wounded Warriors before.
Wounded Warriors, that's the one. That's the one. Because that is 100% veterans, I believe. Mm-hmm. But I looked at them. They had some issues in the beginning with their board of directors not directing all the money. So but they've changed that. They've solved that problem. So I think those organizations, and then locally, anything you can do with the local VFW, American Legion, I just think they are, the local veterans anymore. The social clubs are hurting, generally speaking. And if you want to go out and have a beer sometime, stop at the local VFW or American Legion.
Oh my gosh, that's a great suggestion. I know we have one in our hometown, and you can go in for dinner or drinks or just to be social. It's right down the street, and it's great to visit and learn and share stories. Everybody, this has been an absolutely fantastic podcast. If you want to learn more about me, please check me out at drsindyspeaks.com or shoot us an email at hello@drsindyspeaks. I am going to let you know that my favorite thing about the podcast was chatting with my friend Terry Ruettiger, because the history is just so absolutely essential and important. We need to keep the stories alive. We need to share. We need to learn. And I'm so just appreciative of you being open and willing to let everybody know about a little bit of your life and what has gone on. I will tell you, Terry, that when I do pass somebody who is wearing a hat, no matter what war or military branch they come from, I do stop and thank them for their service. And if those of you out there have never done it, do it. It can be life-changing for both you and the person that it affects. So appreciative of you, Terry, our friendship, and what you have done for all of us in this country. I hope today has left all of you positively altered.